So we lost 50% of our turnover back then.
Like a large part of your client base fell away
They
because
stopped
of that,
growing.
because of the witch hunt, basically.
You know, as a teenager, you want to be a rebel. In my days, one of the ways to do that was to grow weed or to smoke weed already. Everybody likes a good bad boy. And then while working legally in the hydroponic industry, you still have a bit that image while you have a legal job.
Yeah, fair enough. I get what you mean.
That is sort of cool. Well, if I would be growing tomatoes, I would be a tomato grower like anybody else.
Who cares? Yeah.
Now I'm an old school grower, and they call me a legacy grower.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear about a legacy tomato grower? So my first seminar ever, I go there with my colleague Wim. What happens? I had a seminar that took like 2 hours. I didn't know that much about presentation. And then after 1.5 hours, what do you think is going to happen? My colleague Wim, he was a great guy. He fell asleep and started to snore during my seminar.
Anything you miss about your time here, or anything you miss about working at Plagron?
Oh, definitely.
Tell me.
One of the things I miss most is while traveling, having the Plagron credit card.
Yo, what's up everybody? Welcome to the third episode of Legendary Talks here in Plagron HQ. I'm Joey. First introduction, other two podcasts I forgot to say who I am, but now we're here. And today I'm sitting here with Mark Bovens. Mark is an old Plagron employee, legend in the scene, I dare say, and he's doing his own consultancy now. And Mark, first of all, thank you very much for being here. It's awesome to have you here. Fun already getting to know you a little bit better before the recording. But for the people that don't know you yet, can you maybe tell a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. It's a lot of fun to be back at Plagron and to see the new building and all the developments here. It has been 6 years since I haven't seen the Plagron office, and it's just awesome if I see all the changes here and the new offices and the canteen and the R&D places. So
we haven't stood still here, no?
No. I can definitely see that. So yeah, I grew up in the Netherlands. Basically, as a young teenager, I was already surrounded by older people who were growing cannabis. Mm-hmm. Basically, from when I was 13 years old in 1985, I consumed cannabis for the first time. But what was perhaps even more influential for me was to see the respect that some of the people who made their own genetics, who were growing very good weed, the respect that they were getting basically from the normal smokers or the less experienced growers. Mm-hmm. And I think that was during my teenage years that influenced me to wanting to be like that, to gain that respect as well. And so besides that I like to smoke cannabis, of course, I also got very motivated to inform myself about how to grow cannabis back then. Mm-hmm.
That was 85, you say?
Well, yeah, that's when I became 13 and basically smoked my first joint.
Okay. And when did you start growing yourself then?
Well, actually, the year afterwards, I started with an outdoor grown, small scale. It didn't went well because after a couple of days of starting the outdoor grow, we needed to break it down because it wasn't our place where we were growing, and we thought that guy would not be coming back the next year, and because he was in Africa, and eventually he came back. Okay, but the brother of my girlfriend back then, the guy, he was 12 years old. He managed to save 5 of those plants by climbing over the roof and taking those plants to his
That's
bedroom.
Crazy, dude. This little 12-year-old boy climbing over to steal some weed. Okay, yeah.
Exactly, and eventually we managed to flower those 5 plants in his just outside of his bedroom on a big bench which was outside. And I still remember it was Northern Light, and the weed was actually very amazing. It was perhaps a couple of grams per plant because they didn't get the full soil; they were just growing in a pot. But it was very sticky. It had a lot of smell, and that was my first grow basically.
Nothing so sweet like your homegrown, right?
Well, everything you grow yourself is the best ever.
100%, yeah.
Especially when you're 14 years old.
I imagine, yeah.
And so basically in 2019, with 3 friends, we had something like we need to move away out of the city or the village, basically where we grow up, because if we take a house there, everybody knew we were smoking and into weed. So if we would be growing there, everybody would know it from the start. So we moved to Hoensbroek, which is a village at about 15 kilometers
and
from where I
the good
grew
thing for the people that don't know Hoensbroek is that everybody grows in Hoensbroek, so you won't have any.
Most of the people do worse thing in Hoensbroek than growing.
Good point, yeah.
Actually, it's not the safest place. More and more the opposite. But a place where you could be left alone when you were only growing cannabis. And so we all 3, we took our own apartment, which had an attic as big as the surface of the apartment itself, in the same street. And there we started growing. It was 1991, I think.
Lovely.
I had 10 lights, 600 watt lights and 400 watt lights together.
Then? How old were you then?
19.
19, yeah, okay. Yeah. Awesome. That's a nice start of your career, yeah.
Yeah, and it was a cool time. I mean, I remember my first harvest, it was like 1.7 kilo. Very bad yield compared to what we do now, but at that moment I'd never seen so much weed, and it was very worthwhile for me to do it.
Of course.
And then I remember that first cycle that was with this Shiva skunk that we bought from a grow shop in Rotterdam.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second one, I got the legendary citrus skunk cuttings for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I already noted that, because it was springtime, that during the first cycle, it was getting warmer and warmer because of the season, and I couldn't really control the temperature. So for my first cycle, I decided to take 2 lights away.
Yeah.
So only 8 lights. And that cycle, I managed to do 84% of 1 gram per watt. There was 2.8 or 2.8 kilo.
Nice.
And that was very good. All my friends were impressed, basically. Yeah. And that was a time where in the Netherlands you could be growing. If the police would catch you, they would slap you on the hand, basically. And there was no real problem.
But you mentioned that you went all the way to Rotterdam to get those cuttings. Was it difficult to get cuttings back down in the south back then? Or
there were
did
no grow shops in the south.
Damn.
There was Positive Grow or Positronics in Amsterdam, and Roots in Rotterdam. Perhaps there were one or 2 other places in the Netherlands where you could buy cuttings.
Okay.
But there were perhaps 5 grow shops in the whole of Netherlands back then.
I didn't realize that there were that little back then, indeed.
Yeah, I remember. I think a year later there was the Top Shop that opened in Weert.
Yeah.
That was the first one actually in the south of the Netherlands.
Close by, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And so I grew for a couple of years. Moved to Maastricht at a certain moment, where I also did my school studies, so I had a lot of friends there. And in 1995 we started with the second grow shop in Maastricht, which I done for 12 years, which was also a very interesting time.
So you were one of the people that founded that grow shop?
Well, it were actually 2 friends who founded that grow shop of me, and I joined the team a year later.
I see.
Yeah, and that was still a time where nobody really cared about weed growers.
No police visits, nothing in the grow shop. Also, they didn't care.
Sorry,
you never had police in the grow shop or anything like that?
Yeah, we did a couple of times.
Okay.
Once because there was a murder scene where they found canisters of cannabis fertilizers on the scene.
I see.
And they basically came for information about how often those fertilizers would be sold, and if these fertilizers would be a significant lead. If we would have said, for example, this is something we hardly ever sell. Yeah. It's just sold once half a year. Yeah. So it's a very specific person who probably has bought it, but that was not the case. That were probably products we were selling basically every day, so there could be hundreds of people who would have bought that. And there's been once like a raid where they were really looking for things. for illegal things, but nothing that ever led to a serious problem because.
Yeah, you knew how to move within the confinements of the law, I suppose.
We didn't do anything illegal.
Yeah. Of course not.
Basically, in 2003, there was a huge switch in the Netherlands, where the government started with actively pursuing the growers using infrared cameras. They came with this canna chopper that would be able to fly to your chimney and smell there if there would be a weed smell.
Yeah.
And they started to evade people out of their houses when they would be caught, even when with a small grow.
Yeah.
And so that led in the Netherlands to the situation where a lot of the home growers, the nice growers, I would say, stopped growing because we have coffee shops. They can just buy their weed when they need weed.
Yeah.
And if you have kids, for example, you don't want to be thrown out of your house.
No, man.
So we lost 50% of our turnover back then.
Just really like a large part of your client base fell away
They
because
stopped
of that.
growing. Yeah.
Because of the witch hunt, basically.
Because of the witch hunt, and the new regulation and the risk of being caught.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Half of the people,
Yeah, and then in the year afterwards, because of all the growers that stopped, the price of the wheat went up. And suddenly we had a huge change of clientele where more criminal people became basically the most prominent type of client. So these people, they would be having bigger plantations. They might be doing other criminal activities. You couldn't really argue anymore with those people because they use other arguments.
It's a whole different vibe,
which are not verbal. So that basically spoiled for me the fun of working with passionate people. And so I still stayed for 5 years there. And then I got an offer from a fertilizer company to start working for them. And since I had my friend Rob Davis, who was working with Plagron, he said, if you want to work for that fertilizer company, you should just as well consider working for Plagron. And we're friends. I think you owe me that you come to Plagron just to have a chat.
Okay.
And so I felt that Plagron was very motivated to get me in the team. I was doing a lot of outdoor sports back then, mainly climbing. And I was traveling a lot of France. We had a lot of clients, French-speaking clients at the grow shop in Maastricht. I would say 90% of our clients actually. And so I had a certain knowledge about how that market was developing.
Yeah. You spoke the language, also helps, I suppose.
Yeah, I spoke, back then I spoke relatively good French, but not perfect yet. And so I was happy to combine basically my work for Plagron with my passion for outdoor sports. Plagron gave me also the possibility basically to combine those two. I told them in the beginning, if you want somebody who is very motivated, then allow me some freedom. That when there's like the perfect dump of snow and I want to go snowboarding and I have no appointments planned, that I can take off that day.
Sounds like a good deal.
And it was very cool for me. I mean, on one side, those grow shops in France, they live in an environment with much more strict regulation, way higher criminal risks. And I was very much interested in figuring out how a grow shop owner basically lives his life, manages this situation in one of the most repressive countries for cannabis in Western Europe.
Yeah.
And so I was very, very motivated to experience that market, and with the possibility to do my outdoor sports, it was a very nice time. There's also the fact that a lot of the grow shop people, they also like snowboarding and surfing and climbing and those things. So I actually ended up being invited by grow shop people to go snowboard with them, climb with them, kite with them, go on the boat with them, go diving with them. So
is it fair to say then, even though these people lived in a very repressed country, making what they were doing already more criminal, even though it's that these people were still more on the passionate side of things rather than what you saw in the Netherlands where this change happened and you had more people that weren't in there for the passion.
Yeah, in the Netherlands back then it was already way more about the money and not so much about the passion
And that
anymore.
you still saw that in France.
Yeah, well, you know, in France the grow shops, they behave completely different. They need to stay away basically from the plant itself. They cannot sell the seeds. It's very risky for a grow shop owner to grow himself, of course. So everything was very small scale, pure passion.
Yeah,
people risking a lot even with their small scale. So yeah, I found more passion there. You know, a bit the French mentality when they're into something, they're 100% into it.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, so that was on one side very interesting for myself, very nice time for myself also. And I knew that business was in France. It was basically on the point of exploding. So I came at a good moment. There were in that period, was end of 2009, beginning 2010. There were a lot of grow shops opening at that moment. So that means there is you don't need to steal market share away for your competitor. You can basically develop your brand based on the new markets which are opening.
Yeah.
And since Plagron gave me a lot of time to focus on the French market, I quickly became one of the most active sales of our account managers in the whole French industry.
Yeah. Familiar face.
Biobis and Canna at that moment, they were the biggest brands, but their Canna at that moment, they didn't have a sales rep whatsoever for France. So they had their position, but they weren't able to maintain it. Patrick from Biobase, of course, also a big face in the industry. He did a very good job in France already, but he was busy with a lot of other countries as well. And so, Plagron had the possibility basically to focus more on that market in those years. Manage with that to become the number one brand basically in France.
Yeah, because you were there on the floor, you met all the people, and most other brands weren't really there, so they weren't able to give that support.
No, it was literally like this, that in most of the grow shops where I came, they've never seen a sales rep in their life.
Crazy.
And so when I introduced myself, it was like, you're coming from Plagron. You have a lot of experience. You can answer a lot of questions.
Yeah.
You're a very passionate grower. I've never seen that. You come from the Netherlands to visit me specifically. And those people, they would invite me at their home. I would eat there. I would sleep there. I would smoke with them. And basically, I would often leave more as a friend than as a professional partner.
That's awesome,
And so that was very rewarding for me on one side to build such a nice network. And it became also more and more fun to travel, because instead of being alone in a hotel every
friends
evening,
everywhere,
it was like a chain of every day seeing or making new friends, or meeting old friends that I already knew.
That sounds really
and
fun.
So there was just a very good click between my profile and the situation in France at that moment. And I found it was for me very natural and organic, basically, to develop those sales for Plagron.
Fair enough. That's cool. So, in the time that you were at Plagron, is there anything that you remember very well, like when we're talking about maybe funny anecdotes? Is there anything that comes to mind there?
There are so many.
I imagine 10 years is a long time.
Well, there's been a couple of colleagues here which were really cool characters. In that time, Plagron was still small. When I came here, there were 28 people. There was no marketing team. We had
for comparison, we're with 70 people here now. That is a big difference, more than doubled.
And so, if we as a sales team, we wanted to have an advertisement, we went to the graphic artists and I say, hey, can you make something with this product? And I want a dragon with fire in the background, and the slogan, Plagron is the best.
You got it, Mark.
And like a week later, I got it, basically. Nowadays, there is like a marketing campaign which has been developed by so many different people and over a long time that needs to, of course, be strictly respected. And so already in the last years of Plagron, we needed to basically communicate all in a similar way to enforce that marketing strategy. Yeah. And you couldn't just like come up with anything
no willy-nilly.
Just like that. So, but yeah, what a funny store, man. There are so many. I don't know. I don't know what to tell.
We can revisit it later, maybe. If
I'm sure something will come up, because now there are like 5 stories that come into my mind that perhaps need a bit too much explanation before you understand the funny part.
Cool.
But a lot of funny things happened here.
So when talking about your time at Plagron, what was your role here exactly? You were sales for France, but I think you did more than that, because you were officially a product manager, weren't you?
Well, when I started with Plagron, the goal was that I would be getting a sales training. And then after that sales training would start with the Belgium and the French market. Mm-hmm. During that first year, I would say, I was an account manager for a part of the Netherlands. I got to know the products. And one of the things was that I thought I needed a catalog, and Plagron didn't have a catalog. And so after nagging about it for some time, Plagron said, if you want the catalog, go and write the product descriptions. And so eventually that's what we did.
Sure.
Basically, when I started with Plagron, the goal was to get that sales training, eventually start working on Belgium and France, and next to it, organize seminars and function like a grow expert who can explain how the products from Plagron need to be used.
Yeah.
And actually, after 6 weeks of Plagron, I did my first seminar, which was in Rome and in Milan, organized by our Italian distributor. There were 2 people speaking there. It was William Texier from General Hydroponics of Europe, speaking about hydroponic growing. And then there was me, myself, and I speaking about organic growing with Plagron.
I see.
And I don't know if you know William Texier, but he's a huge icon in the hydroponic industry. He's actually one of the investors, the inventors of General Hydroponics, who in the 70s invented hydroponic growing and invented the systems that NASA has been testing in space, for example.
I didn't realize that he literally invented that, indeed. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, he's the guy together with Lawrence Brooks, the owner of General Hydroponics in America. They developed hydroponic growing. And so William Texier, he was already a knowledge expert decades before I basically...
And there you come with just 6 weeks at Plagron.
So for me it was very, very challenging because I knew that the story of William would be awesome. And he has done that many times. This was my first seminar ever. So I was pretty nervous, but I was also very proud to be able to do that.
Imagine, yeah.
Yeah, and so those first 6 weeks, I needed to know everything about the products of Plagron, basically. Write my first seminar. And I remember that seminar. Here we have the very funny story.
Okay, there we go. I knew it would come up.
So my first seminar ever. I go there with my colleague Wim. He was responsible for Italy for the sales part, so of course he needed to be there, and he needed to support me because I was new. And so what happens? I had a seminar that took like 2 hours.
I didn't know. That's a long set.
I didn't know that much about presentation. Now I know that it's in order to make sure that you keep the attention of the people, you need to create interaction. I had no interaction planned whatsoever. I had my laptop with my text. I had my presentation on the screen, and I was just reading. And I saw the people, they were sitting there, and they're sitting there, and they were sitting like this, and they were sitting like that. And I had something like, I could feel it was boring.
Wake up, everybody.
And so I got a bit more
energetic.
Nervous.
Nervous, okay.
Because I didn't feel I had that very positive interaction. And then after 1.5 hours, what do you think is going to happen? My colleague, Wim, he was a great guy. Sadly, he passed away, but he was already in his 60s, and he became something like within all the professionals, also from competitive brands in the industry. We meet each other at all the trade shows, and we're competitors on one side, but also all brothers together working in the same industry.
Mm-hmm.
And he became a bit like the grandfather of all the sales reps. Everybody liked him. But yeah, he was also very much a character. That's why probably everybody liked him so much. What do you think what happened? So all my audience is almost falling asleep.
You tried to wake them up somehow?
He fell asleep and started to snore during my seminar. Like
so that woke up the other people, I hope, at least then.
Well, it was so loud. Everybody was hearing it and was laughing in it. And it was exactly the opposite that I needed at that moment.
And how did that make you feel at that point?
At that moment...
Could you laugh about it?
Not good.
Okay.
Not good. But there was a good switch in the seminar, because once I was ready with my whole presentation, there was a Q&A session.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was suddenly interaction.
Mm-hmm.
And there came a question about humidity during a grow, where while I was sharing my opinion about what humidities you should use, I could see just the people waking up suddenly and being interested, and then starting asking questions. And there was interaction. I could spontaneously speak instead of just read what I had prepared.
That's where your strength really came out.
And suddenly it felt like the people validated what I did.
Mm-hmm.
I could see some of them started to smile, others were visibly happy with the replies. And basically I walked away there, and then I had something like, man, I should just do Q&As instead of these boring presentations that are completely prepared. And so after that, I started to focus basically on creating that interaction way better. And then it becomes almost natural and easier.
But for a minute, let's go back. How did it end up with Wim? Did he wake up at some point, or did you talk with him later about this?
Of course, we talk about it later, and he was.
You saved me, Wim.
He was also embarrassed that it happened, but yeah, I can imagine he is like way more a sales guy than a grow guy. And then if you need to sit there for 2 hours listening to something that you know nothing about, I understand it.
Sure.
And after all, it's just a funny.
It's a funny story for sure. Yeah. I can dig it. Okay, so then you had you started out at the grow shop basically. From there you went to Plagron, and after that, at some point, you started working for yourself, right? So.
Yeah, indeed.
Well, I also know that there's some overlap. You did something for yourself already while you were still at Plagron, and at some point made like a full switch. Could you tell some more about that?
Well, basically, somewhere in 2014, we were already number one in France. That market started to stabilize, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Then I got the French-speaking part of Switzerland also under my hood, which was a bit of a forgotten area for Plagron. They never had a sales rep active in that region, and the distributors there were actually not even selling Plagron.
Was there a lot happening already back then in Switzerland?
Well, yeah, I would say. Well, I would say so. There were a lot of people already growing.
Fair
back
enough.
Then. And then basically in the course of 2016, in Switzerland, the legal CBD producers started, and that was basically the first moment for Plagron where Plagron developed an interest in developing a marketing strategy for these legal commercial growers.
Yeah, whole new
this
audience
was a
to
market
target. Yeah,
outside of the home grow sector, with also a different approach, where a different approach was needed. And so Plagron asked me to develop a strategy for the commercial growers.
Mm-hmm.
During the years I was working with Plagron, I had a Swiss friend, and at a certain moment, in the beginning of 2014, I think it was, we started to develop an idea, because people were starting to use lighter gas butane to make pure and medicinal oil. It was like the hype from America with BHO, which was starting to become popular in Europe. There's a big contradiction in you trying to make a pure and medicinal oil while using lighter gas butane. Butane on its own is neurotoxic, so you need to remove it completely out of the oil, otherwise you have a medicinal oil which is also toxic. And the lighter gas, it's not dedicated for human food processing or for making medicines. It doesn't respect any regulation on that level because it's made for lighters.
Yeah.
From the petrol origin from butane, we know it's contaminated with heavy metals and other nasty stuff, which is no problem for the functionality of a lighter. But once you start using this kind of butane as a solvent, all those contaminations end up in your oil.
Yeah.
And so we were seeing a commercial opportunity, but also hoping to find a solution for more responsible home production of medicinal oil. And at a certain moment we got a tip which was about using a solvent that was already internationally certified in America and in Europe, based on dimethyl ether, which was used for collagen extraction for cosmetics mainly. And this pharmaceutical engineer, which gave us the tip, he basically said that this solvent, it's organic, it's not toxic, and it must have similar extraction capacities like butane. So my bet would be try how this works on cannabis.
Everything you were looking for, basically,
And so, I moved in the beginning of 2014 to Spain, where I could profit from the liberty there, basically. And so I started testing this dimethyl ether gas and comparing it to butane, comparing it to ethanol extraction. I bought a supercritical extraction from America, so I could also compare that. Basically, by the end of 2014, we had so much confidence in the product that we started to develop the commercialization.
The DME product.
The DME product, yeah. And so that was released under the name of Dexo, and Dexo stands for Dimethyl Ether Extraction Solvent. Dexo. Of course, I was working full-time for Plagron. My wife, actually, she opened a distribution company in Spain. My partner opened the company of Dexo itself in Switzerland, in which I had shares but no active function. So, of course, I was helping my wife to have the contacts to sell the products. We were making some pictures and videos from all the extractions I was doing in the weekend and in the evening, which served as a marketing tool, basically. But my wife was running that. I was doing already extractions and making videos of it before we started with Dexo. I was, of course, full-time committed to Plagron, and that was also something that I wanted to respect. And like that, we started basically with Dexo, and because back then I knew already all the distributors here in Europe, and since the sales arguments of the product Dexo were very strong, these distributors were already selling pallets of butane. So it was very easy for them basically to adopt our product, and in 6 months of time, we were selling to all the targeted distributors, so the main distributors in the hydroponic industry in Europe. Then in 2016 we started to export Dexo also to Israel. Over the importer in Israel we got in contact with the company Bol Pharma, which was back then, after Tikkun Olam, the second biggest producer of medicinal cannabis in Israel. And they were specifically prestigious because the godfather of medical cannabis, Dr. Raphael Machulam, was in the board of direction there. And of course, this man, he has...
Rest in peace.
Without him, we would still not know about the medicinal properties of cannabis and the cannabinoid system. So huge respect to him. And we were very proud to even be speaking with these companies
I can imagine,
coming from the home grow sector.
Yeah.
And so they tested our Dexo extraction method and concluded actually that it was very efficient, more efficient than they were doing in their $1 million ethanol extraction lab in Israel at the moment. There are also some complications because it's more flammable. There's a small explosive risk, way lower than with butane, but still higher than with the ethanol extraction than they were doing. But at that moment, we started to believe in selling Dexo not only to the home growers but also to the medical cannabis producers.
Yeah.
And basically to develop a marketing strategy for Dexo. We had something like we need to do the research that we did in 2014 when we compared dimethyl ether extraction to all kinds of other extraction methods in a more credible environment.
Yeah.
So we can present it in a credible way.
Yeah.
So we developed a cooperation with the University of Life Sciences in Prague, where we first were invited by them to do some extractions together, and then eventually with a budget from Dexo, we started research cooperation basically to investigate in detail what are the differences in efficiency and in final chemotype profile of the extract. So which cannabinoids are better extracted by dimethyl ether, which terpenes are better extracted by dimethyl ether, and which are better extracted by others, to understand basically better the value of this specific extraction method. Yeah. And while walking around there at the university, they showed me their cultivation setup, which was terrible because they didn't have much money and they wanted to do a lot of things with the little money that they had. And so they couldn't control the temperature there. It was 32 degrees all the time. The tanks were full of mildew and Californian trips. And I basically concluded that, this is perhaps a nice setup to get some experience for the students with cannabis growing, but you cannot do research here and you cannot show this to anybody.
Yeah.
And then basically, just organically, the idea started to develop. Imagine if we get some budget from Plagron, we build a nice growing room that you with pride can show to somebody, which is professional enough, so you can really do research and copy the environment that a commercial grower also uses. And then with that, using the credibility of a university, this university has a cannabis license, so we could work with high THC varieties, and that's basically the only thing that really makes an impact in the industry, especially back then. And like that, show that Plagron is really focused on cannabis, that we really work with the cannabis plants, while a lot of people were still showing fuchsias and cherry tomatoes because they didn't have a license to work with cannabis. Show that we work with scientists and that we're serious about what we're doing. And Plagron agreed actually with that, but in a supercharged mode, because the facility that we actually built at the university there was way more than that I in the first moment could imagine actually. And so we built there a 100 square meter indoor cultivation facility with 4 different grow rooms. And we basically made a research program that show the difference of the differences of the end result while choosing the 4 different growing methods that Plagron was selling.
Yeah.
So that was purely organic, on the other side purely hydroponic, then hydroponic on organic medium, so that was the cocoa, and then the non-organic growing on soil with the terra fertilizers. Yes, it was more or less a bit a copy of the strategy of Dexo, but it's also, I mean, it's not rocket science. It's a very logical thing to do if you want to show that you're serious, that you really work with cannabis. And you need an environment with a cannabis license, which this university had. And then, halfway in 2018, suddenly there was so much happening around cannabis in Europe. While Europe was always lagging behind America, for example, that I started to be so distracted that it was basically very difficult for me to keep up my focus on my responsibilities for Plagron. So that was the moment where I basically suddenly realized, while I was still very happy with Plagron, and I still have a warm heart for Plagron because I had a lot of personal growth in the 10 years of Plagron. a very good connection with the owner of Plagron, Bram, and the team which was still at Plagron. But at that moment,
you had other opportunities that you kind of needed to take.
There were not really opportunities yet. Most were more distractions, actually, because it wasn't realistic. But I start feeling like, well, this is perhaps the moment where, instead of working more with fertilizers, I should start to work really with the cannabis plant itself.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it was more of that feeling, basically, that you felt like you wanted to work more with the plant that moved you in that way.
But this is something I always had from the beginning.
Sure.
Fertilizers are a big part of cannabis growing, but it's fertilizers, not the cannabis plant itself.
Of course, yeah.
It was very interesting for me to work with Plagron, to learn more about fertilizers from the level of a producer of fertilizers, to build my network, to understand international sales, work in a professional team. So yeah, I think I made a lot of personal growth during my period here with Plagron. But yeah, when people started to consider me at that point as a growing expert and an extraction expert, and people started to ask me for consultancy services, basically.
Yeah.
And actually, a company in Colombia, they offered me a significant share in their operation because they didn't have a cannabis expert. And so from that moment, I started to travel to Colombia regularly, and also started my first consultancy assignments. And so that led to me opening the consultancy company Can Guide Consultancy. Can, of course, from being able to do something, it's also short from cannabis. The guide who shows you basically which direction to go and how to get there. And for 5.5 years, basically, I've been providing these consultancy services on my own, in which I was mainly working for startup companies, people who either still needed to make business plans and attract investment, or companies who had investment who needed to build their facility and develop their production plans. Although I never planned to be a consultant, I suddenly started to realize what an enrichment position it is, because as a consultant, all the equipment providers and material providers like fertilizer producers, lab companies, people with other extraction gear, everything a grower can use, suddenly you're the best friend, because you're like you can be an ambassador, you can be a sales agent for them, and if you advise their products, they're going to sell their products.
Everybody wanted a piece of Mark.
No, well, not so much a piece of me, but they want me to be involved in their products and having experience with their products, being convinced about their products. So I got free products, I got trainings, I got invited for parties and events.
That's pretty cool.
And also for the producers. The producers also like it when a consultant comes by, because you cannot get a consultancy job, without showing some kind of level of expertise to your clients. So you need to give something away. So yeah, you have like the possibility to see a lot of things and to enter a lot of doors that are closed for a lot of people, and that is something like like I said, I developed this passion, or perhaps this infection, about knowing everything about production processes for cannabis, from genetics till processing, basically. And suddenly the industry opened up, and everybody was saying like, okay, come here. I sent you free products. I'm going to tell you how to use it, etc. and etc. And this is something that I still value a lot. And in each new project, basically, there are new things that I learned that I couldn't have seen coming, basically. And then I must say, in the meanwhile, I've been working in more than 10 different countries in Latin America and in Europe. COVID period was very difficult, because there was all the investors turned around. Companies which weren't operational, they didn't have any budget anymore. I managed to hold on basically to after the COVID period, but there were more moments that I was like a couple of $100 away from calling Plagron again to see if they would have a job for me, because I didn't see my new client coming and my budget was running out, basically.
I'm a little bit sad that didn't happen.
Yeah, well,
I
eventually
I
I'm
guess
very,
also happy for you, but for
I
sure.
mean, that wouldn't have been a bad choice whatsoever. But yeah, now I'm a bit proud, basically, that I managed to survive it,
man.
and that's
Yeah.
now going better and better.
Lovely. So that is the professional career that we went through pretty extensively now. I'm curious when we're talking about let's change the subject let's change the subject to growing and your grow. And maybe a fun one to start with is, do you have any big blunders in mind that you made while you were growing? Maybe when you was just starting out, or
Yeah, one funny thing is my first harvest. I didn't, of course, know so much. I read 2 books, the book of Mel Frank,
I have that too.
Indoor Growing,
yeah,
and
classic,
then
man.
Simon Vinkenoog, he wrote a little book in Dutch,
Okay.
which was like thick, like it was 15 pages or something
Okay.
like that. I remember those 2 books. And I remember coming back from Rotterdam with my 200 clones. I had a humidity meter, but I didn't really know what it should say. Yeah. And so I remember I planned my plants. I put on all the lights, of course. I didn't know that it would be more easier with just a couple of lights in the beginning. And then after a couple of hours, the humidity was very low, and my clones, they were laying flat on the soil.
Oh shit, dude.
And eventually I figured out that humidity helps them to get straight again.
Yeah.
But I had like just a hand sprayer like that. And
200
like after 2 or
plants.
3 days, my hands were like completely
I imagine.
worn out. I was like at a certain moment spraying them like
Crazy,
that.
man.
But yeah, I managed to survive, to make my plants survive.
Fair enough.
But yeah, I can still remember how those plants were like all laying flat on the floor, and I thought they were dying basically.
Yeah. That is another nice way of stepping into the grow, I suppose, when you have
No.
your first grow going.
No.
What the hell's
No.
going on here, right?
No, indeed.
Then, so then, is there any mistakes that you see happen a lot for beginner growers in general that you think can be easily prevented? That because you spend a lot of time in a grow shop as well, you do consultancy, so I suppose that you've seen it all, I want to say.
No, there is so much to see. I haven't seen it all, and
Fair enough.
I'm learning. I keep learning. I mean, now there is so much new knowledge available. We have levels of automation like we never had before. We have types of sensors like we never had before. So yeah, I really think that there's a new era of cannabis growing.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that many starting growers don't control is the same thing that I was just saying. It's humidity,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very important for fast development, basically, to be able to control that. And these systems are often, especially in the past, they were pretty expensive compared to the light itself and the extractor. So that was the reason why people didn't buy those systems.
Yeah.
But yeah, you cannot really have real control over your plant if you don't have control over your humidity.
Yeah, you want to control your entire environment basically to get the best results, I suppose, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, keeping control over your humidity, basically keeping control over your whole environment to keep everything running smoothly and to really be able to maximize the results, I suppose, then, right?
Yeah, well, a good cultivation cycle, it's a chain in which every buckle defines the strength of the chain.
Yeah.
If you can be perfect with your watering and with your...
Only as strong as your weakest link.
Exactly.
Basically, Liebig's barrel, right?
Yeah.
Do you know? Yeah, I suppose
Yes.
you also know it, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, all the different parameters, they need to be as good as possible, and the weakest one is the limiting one.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
Cool. So how about when we're looking at nutrition? Is there any common mistakes that you see there happening that you think are easily prevented?
Yeah, well, a lot actually. A lot of people, they think that the more fertilizer you give, the better your yields are.
That's a common issue.
It doesn't work like that. It only works when things are in balance.
Yep.
Another thing that I see a lot in the home grow sector, not with commercial growers, is that the people want to be their own alchemist, and they think that they can find some kind of combination of different products that is going to make the complete difference and is going to give them double yields.
Yeah.
And while they don't really know about fertilizers and biostimulants, they are like buying products from Plagron and Canna and different brands, and they think that this combination that they are going to be finding out is going to do it. Yeah. That's like basically just like going to the lottery with your eyes closed.
That makes sense.
They don't know exactly what are components in the fertilizers. They are not fertilizer scientists.
No.
They're just trying something.
And sometimes they're lucky, I suppose.
Well, no, it doesn't happen.
Honestly, I know exactly what you're saying, but I have this one example, and when I'm talking about him, the dude knows exactly who that I'm talking about him. There's this dude that grows autoflowers, and he's been telling me now that he makes a mix of 3 substrates, cocoa, peat, and hydro rocks. Then he puts his plants in there, and he doesn't give those plants any base nutrients, so no A and B, no nothing like that. And he only works with boosters on top of that. And on top of that, he also uses a combination of PK1314 and Green Sensation, which both are heavy in phosphorus and potassium. He doesn't use them at the same time. But at the same time, if I look at this dude's plants, it's fucking crazy, dude. They look amazing. It's incredible. So he's found something that works.
Well, I won't say it's impossible, but
fair enough.
Since you don't know exactly what is in the Canna boost or the Plagron boost, just to say it like that, there's a big chance that there is an antagonistic effect happening of different substances that cannot be mixed in a nutrient solution together. This works, for example, with high concentration of calcium and phosphate.
Yeah, you get calcium.
You cannot
phosphate,
mix hydrogen peroxide with certain enzymes, for example. And there are all kinds of unwanted reactions.
Yeah.
That, I mean, fertilizer companies, they are choosing their components very well. They make very strict calculations.
I have this conversation on a weekly basis with people. Yeah.
So these things don't happen. And then somebody else who doesn't even know what's in the products, he's just going to mix them together, and he thinks it's going to be better. So a lot of people, they ask me how you should use a fertilizer. First thing I always say, follow the instructions from the brand that you're using. It's very important. You cannot use Plagron fertilizers according to the instructions of any other brand. That just doesn't work. The other thing is, like, if you start combining products from different brands,
you better know what's in there, because
you better know what's in there, and you better know how they behave together, because otherwise you're gonna fuck up.
Yeah, all good. No worries.
You're not gonna make a good nutrient solution. Let me say it like that.
Yeah. Fair enough. That makes sense. Yeah. So then, do you have any specific feelings about in the debate about mineral versus organic?
Of course. As my old colleagues from Plagron all know, I love organic. I've been promoting organic a lot.
And why is that exactly?
Well,
because you've grown a lot mineral as well, I think we talked about before.
Of course. My main motivation is production process for cannabis. And you can learn things from growing hydroponically with mineral fertilizers that you cannot learn with growing organically.
Fair enough.
I love doing research. In order to figure one thing out, you need to stabilize other things during your research process. And then it's often organic is too vague, basically, to be precise. And growing hydroponic with mineral fertilizers allows you to be very precise. In the amount of nitrogen that the plants gets, for example, just to name one. So I believe in organic because mineral fertilizers have been used in a wrong way, killing a lot of the agricultural soils, leading to a lot of leachings of minerals that are contaminating surface water, killing soil life in agricultural soils. These problems you don't have when growing organic. But it's not that organic growing is everything. It also has its limitations. One of the things that few people know, especially in the home grow sector, is that in some approaches, it depends on what you're looking at, you can make a cleaner product with mineral fertilizers than with organic.
Yeah.
There are organic substances that can be rich in heavy metals.
Yeah, that's the thing. Organic doesn't mean free of contaminants, of course.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yes, indeed. So if you want to have, imagine you're a developer of a project. You've been working years before your project even got its investment. Yeah? Then you start it up, you do everything to make it to be successful. Yeah? Then you have the possibility to do everything very precise and knowing exactly what you're doing. Yeah? That's the mineral growing. You might have less terpenes in your end product, but the chance that you have a product to sell might actually be significantly higher.
Fair enough.
And then if you like growing medicinal cannabis with certain contamination, like microorganic contamination, so fungi and bacteria, or contaminations with heavy metals are an issue, it might be actually be way easier for you to reach that, to respect these criteria when you're growing mineral on an inert substrate like rock wool or aeroponic, for example, than when you pull all kinds of organic products into your facility, of which some ingredients or products or substances inside might be defined and other you don't know. Because if you buy warm castings, for example, you might know, for example, what is the MPK of that warm castings without the producer even knowing himself whether there are other contaminations.
Fair enough. You need a whole different type of analysis for that, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so, for a medicinal cannabis producer, or for example, a producer who needs to grow CBD strictly on the 0.3, which is very challenging.
Yeah.
Using an organic substrate gives you way less control over the things which is happening.
It's
and that means also that the risk that you go either over the 0.3% or get unwanted contaminations that might disqualify your complete production are actually way higher when you grow organic. So organic growing also has its place, and it needs to be done in the recognition that a cobra, just to say something, it's also completely organic but deadly. Organic doesn't mean it's safe. It doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean that everything is okay. You still need to pay attention to certain things. The other thing is that the level of control about the release of nutrients is of course way less specific.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the sustainability of organic, but I also understand that an endocannabis company needs to have a certain stable output.
For sure.
And you need, as a team that is running that facility, you need to have the experience with either method to make sure that the production is commercially viable.
Yeah, I get
at all time. And there's also this thing like organic, it's better for the world. In principle, I agree. But imagine, you're spending millions of euros to build your facility. The products to build that facility, they're coming from all over the world. They're transported with fossil fuels.
That's the thing, for sure.
Your colleagues that need to come to the facility, they're coming on the car with fossil fuels. The trucks are bringing your substrate with fossil fuels.
Yep.
You're growing organic. You have, let's say, 30% less yield. Does all the contamination from your other activities, the colleagues who need to come to the facility in their car using fossil fuel,
balances it out again.
Does it balance out the 30% lack of yield that you have? Because there might be a point where you're actually, for the same level of contamination, because the same people are coming to the office, the same substrate has to be delivered, the same consumption of fossil fuel that is happening, whether you grow organic or not, it needs to basically weigh up to that 30% of less yield that you have. Otherwise, you're growing in living soil when you look at the total picture, you're just as contaminating as
I see what you mean indeed.
as the other company, or you're not 30% less contaminating. That would balance out that 30% less yield that you have.
Yeah. So, but let's then...
That's like the economic approach, basically, from growing organic and contamination.
Of course, yeah, and at that scale, that becomes really an important thing to consider as well. But if I would ask you, what would be your favorite grow style or setup for a home grow? What would that look like? Then we are probably, I'm guessing, growing organic. What would that look like for you? What kind of system are you running?
Yeah, well, a sort of hybrid way. Instead of working with living soil, which is completely pre-fertilized, that works well when you have a very good living soil and when your cycle goes as planned. Mm-hmm. Such a soil doesn't work if you have, like in the veg phase, you have huge problems because of I don't know what. The temperature is way too low, and your living soil is actually already working, but your plants are not absorbing what he's giving.
Yeah, you might burn them.
The development of the plants need to be in line with the release of fertilizers of that living soil.
Mm-hmm.
So when everything goes well, it's no problem. For a beginner grower, he might profit from a sort of flexibility that living soil doesn't offer. And then you can use, for example, liquid organic products like the Plagron, Alga Grow and Blue, that gives you the flexibility at any moment to give more or less.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I would say living soil, once you know your genetic and you approved your room basically and you know what to do.
Yeah.
And the chance of big mistakes during that period has reduced significantly. Living soil, perfect choice. It's easy, you only need to water.
Yeah.
But if you still want to stay organic, but have more flexibility and more control, basically, you can use liquid fertilizers.
Liquid organics then.
Yeah.
And that is what your preference would be? Like if somebody would ask you, hey man, I suppose also for everybody is going to be a bit of a different setup, what suits their needs the best. But if I would ask you, average home grower, how would you form their setup? That would be then living soil in the basis, or you would gravitate towards liquids? And like, are you working in pots, or are you working with a certain system, like a flow? Or
basically, adding on what I was just saying, if it would be a completely novice grower, I would use a slightly pre-fertilized soil, like the Plagron Grow Mix, for example,
mm-hmm.
and then liquid fertilizers.
Yeah.
That give the new grower basically the ability to start reading the plants, see
mm-hmm.
when it's nicely green, see when it's a bit too yellow, when it's a bit too green, start to recognize other nutrient deficiencies or excesses,
mm-hmm.
While still having the flexibility. Because, I mean, when you start a grow, problems are going to happen. There are things that you think are perhaps not so important as they actually are eventually.
Mm-hmm.
And so if your plants are then growing way less because of this wrong idea that you had, then your living soil is releasing fertilizers. Yeah, then you get an imbalance. So I would say, first, get to know the growth cycle of a cannabis plant.
Mm-hmm.
While using liquid fertilizers that give some flexibility, still very easy to use. You don't need to care about the pH normally.
Yeah.
They are sort of slow released.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to burn the plants as fast as mineral fertilizers, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So still very easy to use for a beginner grower. And then once you know your genetic and you understand your systems and you know that for the next 2 months your systems will be working as you plan them to work,
mm-hmm.
then living soil is perfect. Understanding that you lose that flexibility.
Yeah.
And then on the next step, I think it's very interesting. Also, if you want to learn about nutrient absorption by plants, I think hydroponic growing is also very interesting because it's very fast reacting.
Mm-hmm.
You have like these 17 components that we know that plants really need. The most important being nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have like the micro elements and the trace elements. You know exactly what you're giving. And there you can really see a bit more nutrients creates this change in color of the plants, and our plants is more happy or less happy. With organic growing, this goes slower, so it's more difficult to see the effect of giving more nutrients yesterday.
Yeah.
On hydroponic, you will see it today. If they were a bit underfed, and yesterday you gave a big dose of fertilizers, you will see today that they're more green. And that is also an important part of understanding how nutrients are absorbed by the plants and how you can optimize basically the availability of nutrients for plants, which is difficult to learn when you grow organic.
Fair enough. But is it then fair to say that you don't specifically have like a favorite system that you would recommend to people, but you have more like a roadmap of what you think would be good for people to follow in order to really get a good grip of growing plants, nutrition, and like the whole system basically around it, so then they can choose whatever works best for them?
Well, what I want, it's not really relevant for my clients.
Fair enough.
What I want would be basically a hybrid of both. Something like biomineral, cocos, for example, where you have an organic substrate. You can use minerals or some fertilizer products as well, or organic biostimulants. You already see a difference in quality often compared to rock wool. I personally, when it's for my own home grow, I go for quality, not for yield, not for commercial requirements. And so then I would quickly choose for either fully organic, either living soil, or cocoa. And then my preference is to use both mineral and organic products.
That makes sense. Basically, the mineral to get your plant everything it needs, and the biostimulants on top of that to get the expression and flavor, to get the expression and that makes sense.
Exactly. But for example, I have a client now who wants to grow CBD flowers in a country where nobody is yet growing CBD flowers, and where the government is very nervous because they already accuse more or less this party of growing marijuana. So they need to gain the trust of the government by respecting that 0.3% very strictly.
Yeah, of course.
And so for that, clear selection of genetics is needed, but also the approval of the cultivation strategies. Because most CBD varieties, it's very difficult to grow them under 0.3%. The fact that you have a good genetic doesn't mean that it's always going to be under 0.3%, because the growing methods, the crop steering methods can have a huge influence on the final THC concentration in the product. And so in such a situation, I would choose for the highest level of control. In this situation, we chose for mineral with rock wool. There is a wish, a desire to change later to cocoa, but only when this has been improved. That it works with the available genetics, and that it is able to improve the quality
without getting over that 0.3,
while respecting that 0.3% at all time. So it's really depends on the situation.
That's fair.
When you're a novice medical cannabis grower, it might be easier to avoid contamination in your product if you start with mineral fertilizers,
of course,
on an inert substrate like rock wool. Of course, then you need to use fertilizers that are low in heavy metals and do not bring in these contaminations that would lead to disqualification of your medical cannabis batch. But with the products of Plagron, there is no problem whatsoever. They're actually very low in heavy metals and respect all regulations. But that's not the case with all the fertilizers. And you have, as a commercial grower, also the responsibility to verify those things. You cannot.
You have to. Yeah. Otherwise, it'll show up in your end product, and you're basically too late already, right?
Yeah, and it's no excuse to blame it on the fertilizer.
True. You have to do your homework as well.
You are not going to be able to sell your product, and the fertilizer company has basically no responsibility in that.
Fair enough. Yeah.
You need to keep that in your own control.
So, are there any trends that you see happening in the cannabis market like, how do you see the next 5 to 10 years? Do you see things changing? Do you see certain things come up, become more popular?
Well, there is so much developing at the moment. Nowadays, we're using dynamic spectrum in LED lights, for example, which can help us to, in the veg stage in the first 3 weeks,
give a little bit more blue, and then that's what you're saying, dynamic as in the color of the light changes over the cycle.
There are LED systems now, indeed, in which you can completely choose what the light of your LED light, what the color of the LED lights will be. And so certain colors create certain effects in plants. They stimulate certain behavior, like more vegetative development, more generative development. And also more specific things like elongation of distance between internodes, the ripening of the plants, transitioning from veg to flowering, or even the increase of THC in the last weeks of flowering. Of course, we knew already a couple of things. We already 30 years ago, we would be bringing the light intensity down and the temperature down in the last days. Now we have a knowledge about crop stirring techniques, which is holistically integrated in the full cultivation strategy, where what you do with your irrigation strategy enforces what you do with your nutrient strategy, and that enforces what you do with your climate strategy. And that leads to situations where there are now plants that normally would flower 10 weeks, that we can flower in 7 weeks if we want, etc.
Maybe not everybody watching might know what crop steering is. Could you give it a very simple explanation for us?
Sure. Crop steering are adaptations to optimal cultivation strategies that create a certain effect. So, for example, in most growers till today, especially the home growers, they are in the first 3 weeks of flowering. They're using basically a strategy that results in optimal plant development. Well, this is the transition phase from veg to flowering, where the plants normally start to stretch. And the risk is that they stretch too much, leading to empty plants where you have long stems with just a few flowers here and there. Actually, now we know that in this first 3 weeks of flowering, for certain varieties, specifically sativa, typical sativa-like varieties that get very big, you don't want optimal development. You want a fast transition into flowering, and at all costs, you want to avoid this stretch. So if you use here a cultivation strategy that gives the plant everything that it needs in the most optimal ways, you might actually end up with less yield.
Because your plant actually stretches more than you would want, or than it could if you would control it with crop steering techniques.
Exactly. So by giving less favorable conditions during this period, for example, higher EC values in the substrate, lower water content values, a bit more stress induced from the VPD. So that means lower temperatures and lower humidity than the plant actually would like at that moment. Plant is stimulated to focus its energy in making flowers, and it's destimulated or not stimulated to invest in grow. So you avoided stretching, and where the transition phase normally would take 3 weeks for a certain variety, it might now just take 2.5 weeks, for example. So you win a couple of days, and you have a better model of plants. Of course, you want all the flowers to reach light and to be close to the light. And if you have very elongated plants, some of the flowers will be far away from the light. And this is basically what you avoid with it. So crop steering is basically stepping away from the idea that you always need optimal conditions. Sometimes the right induced stress can actually improve your results.
Yeah, and that is kind of something that's been known in the legacy market. Like old school growers know, hey, I can stress my plant and I can improve certain things. But with crop steering, it's basically been pulled to more of a science, right? Okay, if you do this, you can expect this, and it's more like you say, kind of a holistic system that has been scientifically proven for the most part, right?
Yeah,
Instead of like leaning on this bro science, like, hey, if you do this, you get better terpenes, or
I mean, for 30 years, we're already saying that inducing stress in the last weeks helps with ripening the plants.
Mm-hmm.
People are doing that for a long time already by giving, for example, less water.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like an individual technique. At the end of the cycle, you give less water. Point.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a cultivation strategy that goes from seedling or cutting till harvest, where all parameters and all activities basically that the plant require are well defined. Instead of that, there are a couple of individual moments where you use a certain level of stress. You have a cultivation strategy where at all moments stress from climate can be combined with stress from nutrition, with stress from irrigation to create a way stronger or regulated, moderated level of stress. And so instead that it were some individual techniques that you do now and a couple of weeks later, for example, it's a cultivation strategy that includes a crop steering technique, where it's not only stress induced from the substrate in the last weeks, but where also temperature, light intensity, and climate and other climate parameters basically help with creating this effect that you're trying to get at the moment.
So, Mark, jumping back to Plagron, anything you miss about your time here, or anything you miss about working at Plagron?
Oh, definitely.
Tell me.
One of the things I miss most is while traveling, having the Plagron credit card.
I can imagine, man. Yeah, that must be. And now you have to pay everything on your own name. Yeah, that's less fun than.
No, but it's just
maybe if we talk to Bram and Pascal, maybe we can get something arranged.
Okay, yeah, that would be.
I'll put in a good word for you, happily.
No. The jokes aside, well, it's for me when I started working with Plagron, especially in the last years, I had so much support from the whole team that gave me the possibility basically to focus on the things that really motivate me, that create sales.
Yeah.
And once, suddenly you're all on your own, and you need to do everything yourself. And that's a way of work that it took me some time basically to be efficient in that. It's also like we had the COVID period. Being an independent consultant in an industry where all investors basically turned their back to the industry in that period.
Some stability would have been nice, yeah?
Yeah, well, I was living from project to project, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
When you work with Plagron, you have something which is ongoing all the time.
Yeah.
So you have your your continuation of everything. And as soon as you're independent, and especially in that COVID period, there are periods where I had a lot of work to do. There were also periods where the only work I had basically was finding a new client, which wasn't easy because nobody had money in that period. Then you sometimes you feel like you're all alone, deep in a big sinkhole, basically. And the only way to get out of it is basically by yourself. And I really felt while I was developing the French market for Plagron that I really had a huge team behind me, which were filling in stuff. Suddenly there were problems with the certification of the products according to the specific French regulations, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And although Plagron did that relatively good compared to other brands, there were still some products away. Mm-hmm. And I knew that while I was trying to get the distributors less worried, that my colleagues here were working on getting that certification organized and having the products back in the market as soon as possible, and actually way faster than all our competitors. And that gives you a lot of confidence to know that you have such a big and professional team behind you.
Yeah, that you can really count on.
and that you have the freedom basically to focus on the things where you can make a difference without being distracted by the things.
And your strengths basically also then, right? You don't have to do everything around it. It's just, hey, this is my strength and I can focus on this.
And other people have the other necessary strength. Are on the office working on what I need basically.
Yeah, I get that.
That's something that I miss. Of
I
course.
was hoping for something more sentimental, but this also makes sense.
Well, this is more indeed the professional side, of course. Yeah, the interaction with the colleagues, man. I've made so much good friends. There were people that I've been learning so much from here.
Yeah, and 10 years is a long time, man. You're gonna undoubtedly make some really good connections with people, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, the sales team back then in Plagron, it was a family.
I dare to say that it still is, man. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's different. There are other people working now. Some of them I don't know, of course. So, when I'm now here walking around, there are a lot of people I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, I still have a very warm heart for Plagron, and I'm looking back at those 10 years with. Man, we had so much fun. We've been while working hard. We were always also joking a lot, and it was something also that was very much accepted within by the direction of Plagron to
work hard. Play hard.
Exactly.
Right?
No. Yeah. Exactly. And I think it's very important. It creates a team feeling. It creates the feeling that you're connected to the brand. Like that situation where I felt like I'm visiting the shops in Plagron, but I'm not on my own.
Yeah, I have the whole team behind me.
If there is something coming up that needs to happen in an office, even while I'm on the road, somebody will do it, and somebody will do it good and as fast as possible.
Yeah, that's cool to have a team that you can really count on, indeed.
No, and I made so many friends for life while working for Plagron. My colleagues or our clients or other people I met in the street. I managed to develop a big network, which is very, very valuable. And now and then, and on the human level, I really think that Plagron is a company that validates that human aspect and the relations between the colleagues. And of course, it takes a time. You cannot, if you have a certain idea as a sales as an account manager, and you haven't achieved anything yet. Plagron might be hard to allow you that specific thing that only you want. But in the time that France really started to become a good market, I felt I got so much liberty, basically.
You got the trust, you proved yourself, and you got the trust, basically, to do what you felt was needed.
Yeah, well, not always, because I wasn't right all the time neither.
Fair enough.
And in that way, there have also been moments where I needed to change my opinion, basically.
Of course.
Based on good advice coming from other people at Plagron. And that's also something that at that moment when you have that discussion, you don't see it. But if you afterwards see that the idea of your colleague worked, and with that also understand that your idea probably would have not, you see what the value is, basically, of having good people around you and behind you, more or less.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, that is cool. And then jumping, what would you say is the coolest thing about working in this industry? So not working for Plagron specifically, but working in this industry. Maybe you said it already, but...
Yeah, one thing is that, as a teenager, you want to be a rebel. And in my days, one of the ways to do that was to grow weed, or to smoke weed already. And everybody likes a good bad boy. I mean, we're not criminals. We have never been harming other people. But according to the law, cannabis was illegal. And so, you were, in a certain way, you are the bad boy, the adventurer. It makes you cool, sort of. And then while working legally in the hydroponic industry, you still have a bit that image. Well, you have a legal job.
Yeah, fair enough. I get what you mean.
That is sort of cool. Well, if I would be growing tomatoes, I would be a tomato grower like anybody else.
Who cares? Yeah.
Now I'm an old school grower, and they call me a legacy grower.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear about a legacy tomato grower?
Not at all.
So yeah, that is sort of cool. And besides that, I mean, I've been waiting and fighting and supporting legalization for many years. As an industry, we've been achieving that, actually. It wasn't just all the home growers, it's also the companies, the fertilizer companies that make the industry more professional, the seed banks that were growing seeds while it was still illegal, and all the other companies that make our story more credible, the industry more profitable, the products more reliable and more safe, etc. and etc. And it's been, I think you can imagine if you start like with an illegal product.
Yeah,
and nowadays we're building facilities
There's
that
a
are
crazy journey that you went through, yeah.
So awesome, whereas technology combined with sustainability, with automation, with science.
I'm realizing this now, dude. You went from basically like the inception of indoor growing, barely any grow shops around, to all the way over here where you're like consulting professional companies on how to grow. That is indeed
but
a
also
long but
working
crazy
with
road.
Universities, man. I never thought that. We're doing things like micropropagation now.
Did the little
like
15-year-old Mark ever think that, right? That's crazy indeed.
I mean, it was basically when I was 13 that I really chose to position myself as somebody very knowledgeable about cannabis processes.
It's crazy.
Because I had a couple of people around me. They were already legends back then. I'm thinking about the guy who made the citral skunk, for example, who was also from the south of the Netherlands, and he probably didn't know me, but I knew him. My older friends knew him, and he got so much respect, and I just wanted that respect.
Is this the dude from Brunsum-Hoensbroek area? The professor, right?
He's called the professor, and
he
is my most influential.
I've had him as a customer when I was working still in a grow shop, and I've seen him afterwards also. Like, I have my respect here for this dude is really, somebody very special indeed. I can imagine exactly what you're saying here. Yeah.
Well, he didn't only develop the strongest varieties of the early 90s, which was the citral skunk. I mean, back then we had varieties like Orange Bud, Top 44, Skunk X, Skunk I. Super Skunk was very good. But when he came out with a citral skunk, people were falling. I mean, experienced smokers were just falling knockout from their chairs, and we never had such a variety that give you that headband feeling that we now. Now it has a name. The headband stoned. I mean, back then we felt the headband, but we didn't know how to call it. And this guy, then after breeding this very unique variety, in the early 90s, he started to do micropropagation, tissue culture micropropagation on cannabis. He was the only one I knew, and I
had no clue that he already did it in the early 90s, though. I know that he did it, and I know that he taught it also at a Austrian university, I'm pretty sure, but I didn't know that he was doing this already in the 90s.
Yeah, he started in the early 90s with
crazy
this.
Man.
Yeah, and in 1994 he had his method ready, and he had his lab ready.
That's when I was born, dude. That's crazy.
And then, by the time he had his lab ready and wanted to start commercializing cannabis cuttings, which were not containing THC and therefore were still legal in the Netherlands, and basically. In the month that he was ready with his micropropagation lab, the law changed. And he never commercialized one cannabis clone.
Crazy.
And then he started to do mushrooms, because then you also need to work sterile. The laboratory requirements are pretty much the same, which I also thought was awesome that he was growing the mushrooms. And then basically while seeing at the university in Prague in 2017, the first university micropropagation project on cannabis, and I saw it fail basically because of they were getting roots on their plants eventually, but those plants they're having a hormone imbalance and they were so weak. If I would show you those plants, you would vow it was no cannabis.
Crazy.
Because of this hormone imbalance.
Mutated.
the leaves, they didn't have fingers like a cannabis plant have. The cannabis leaves, they have dents normally. They didn't have dents. The leaves were curled completely in the way that those plants, they look like one Brussels sprout on a stem. It was really one empty stem with a bunch of leaves suddenly coming from the same point, all curling up to a little ball like a little Brussels sprout. And I'm sure if I would show you this plant, you would bet with me that it's not cannabis. And so I didn't know actually what was that problem, because I'm not a micropropagation expert, but I saw it failing basically. And then in 2018 I got involved in research at the University in Geneva, where Plagron also supported the research, where we did genetic development first, and then eventually I managed to make a cooperation agreement with this guy who developed the citrus skunk.
Dude, I just know that he taught at the Austrian college. I had no idea that you were instrumental in getting him there also. That's crazy.
Yeah, well, that was...
It's a small world in the end, right?
Basically, while at the university in Geneva, they have that designated micropropagation laboratory where they never worked with cannabis. Once, one of my best friends there became the first student who was allowed to work with cannabis.
Okay.
He called me right when he walked out of the office of the professor, when he got the authorization, and he said, you know what just happened? I'm the first student who can work with cannabis, and I know you're working already with the university in Prague. I'm going to need a lot of fertilizers, so I would like to develop a cooperation with Plagron, and he invited me to participate. And so there I started seeing the micropropagation work in this designated micropropagation lab that they didn't have at the university in Prague, basically. And then by the time I started there, also the same problems appearing.
Yeah,
I found the website from a very influential micropropagation lab from Canada in the cannabis industry. And I saw that on the homepage of their website, they were showing plants with hormone imbalances.
Oh, you thought that's
and they're
not good.
the leader in the industry. And then I had something like, damn, man, this guy from the 90s.
Yeah, fuck.
I've seen his
he knew it
plants
already back then, yeah.
And they did not have... He had very healthy looking micropropagated plants. And then I approached him, and I said, well, I think your method has something that the best people cannot do with cannabis in micropropagation at the moment.
Yeah.
And so I got him involved in a designated micropropagation research project to approve basically his method and allow us to have the credibility and the marketing materials to start commercializing it. And now at the moment there are, I think, 2 or 3 of the Dutch experiments who are using his micropropagation method.
Yeah, I know indeed Hollandse Hoogtes is one of them, I think, right? Or they're starting out with that now?
I cannot confirm that.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, fair enough. Okay, it's so funny now also to have these puzzle pieces fall into place, because like I said, I knew like some of it, but now it turns out that now I know the whole story. This is very interesting.
It was actually yesterday evening. I was spending the whole evening with him, with the professor.
Lovely. Yeah.
He heard that I had problems with my stomach, so he brought me a product that he also uses in micropropagation.
Oh, what?
Which it's really an amazing product. I cannot say what it is, but
it helps.
In 2020, I was in Maastricht actually to work on the license application for the wheat experience for one of my clients, and I got a disease called gordelroos.
Yeah,
I think it's shizzles or something.
I'm not sure what the English name is, to be honest. It's like a skin issue, but what it is, nobody knows.
Well, we do know. It's
in the sense I don't know the English term for it.
It's a virus. And of course, I live in Spain. I don't have a doctor in the Netherlands, but I managed to find a doctor in Maastricht that was willing to see me. And literally in the morning, he told me, well, this is shizzles. It's a virus infection. There is no medicine against it. It will go away in 6 months of time, but it attacks the nerves, and that's why you have those phantom pains. So I really had phantom pains, like suddenly, especially here on the right side of my chest and my right arm, Suddenly I felt something burning. Then I felt something stinging. Then I felt something itching.
Crazy.
Well, there was nothing to see basically. And then I was speaking with this micropublication expert, and he said, "Tonight I'm coming to you. I'm bringing something for you." And he brought me this product. He said, "You need to drink it before going to bed. You need to drink it before having breakfast in the morning. And you need to put it on a paper, and on the places where you have pain or where you might have spots on your skin, you need to put it there." And I started in the evening when he came by with it. The morning afterwards, I wake up. 75% of my phantom pains were gone.
Crazy.
The doctor explained me, this is something, there is no cure for it, but it will go away eventually. But the damage on the nerves has been done. It takes 6 months before this will recover. And during 6 months, you will have these phantom pains, basically.
Turns out the doctor didn't know as much as the professor.
2 days later, 95% of my pain was gone.
That's crazy.
And like a couple of days later, it was completely gone. Well, since then, I've been meeting other people who had this disease, who followed their doctor advice, and they were in pain for 6 months.
Yeah, knowing then that it could be solved as easily. Okay, that's awesome.
And this product, it's a bit like cannabis. It's not allowed to use as a medicine.
I see. Yeah, I think we need to talk about it. We need to talk about it after the podcast a bit. I'm curious. But talking about after the podcast, I think we are nearing an end here. And as a closer, I would like to ask you, do you have a legendary grow tip that you can share with the people?
Oh, that's not an easy one, because
it has to be legendary. It cannot just be any grow tip.
It needs to be making an impact. Especially for the home growers, perhaps less in the Netherlands, because there's more experience in the Netherlands than in other countries. A lot of people, they harvest their plants too early. And of course, we have our idea of this variety needs to flower 9 weeks, and this variety needs to flower less or longer. But in generally, I would say, assuming that these people who need this tip don't get to the point where the plant normally get to the point where the plant is on one side still fully healthy and also still fully ripened. I mean, a lot of people get problems in the 5th week. We even have the 5th week problem, for example, in home growers, and that leads to the result that by the time the plants need to be harvested, plants are not really healthy anymore. It has little use to leave the plants longer. Often the quality might even get worse if the plants don't have the right health at that moment. But if your plants are still very healthy, and you're at the point that you getting very impatient to harvest, in a lot of cases, if you would wait another week or even 10 days, you will see that your yields will be way better. Your product is way ripened. The effect is way stronger, and it looks way more beautiful.
That's a great tip, but what if after that week or 10 days your plant still looks healthy?
Well, of course, you also need to look at the trichomes.
Sure. Yeah. And then we look at the amberness and the cloudiness of the trichomes, basically to determine the harvest point. Yeah.
Exactly. But I assume now that this beginner grower often does not have healthy plants on the moment that the trichomes for more than 50% start to get milky.
Fair enough.
So once you're not in that situation and your plants are still healthy, keep them in the pot, keep watering them. And when there's no fungi in the plants, when there are no spider mites on the plants, and when the plants are still really healthy, they can still make a significant amount of yield actually.
Okay.
Till that point, and really just become, the terpene profile gets more rich, the bracts get more solid and more developed. It just gets better and better. Even nowadays with crop steering, while with extreme crop steering we can harvest a plant well ripened in 7 weeks, which normally would take 10 weeks. It's nice to be able to do that. It doesn't mean that it's the best way, that you get the best yield done.
Fair enough.
This relates more to the more professional growers. I think in general, when you're a beginner grower and you have this harvest where your plants are doing better, and like even in the 8 week, for example, are looking very, very beautiful, very nice green leaves. They're still developing.
Leave them.
It might be, and when your trichomes are not like completely milky yet, you can be confident and leave them a bit longer.
Okay.
And it's very difficult, of course.
Yeah, patience.
It's very difficult, but often, depending on the genetics, it's worthwhile.
Yeah, I think that's a great tip, man. And with that, I would like to thank you very much for being here. I think it was a lovely talk, and we need to catch up a little bit after the podcast to get some of that other information. But everybody watching, thank you very much for watching. This was the 3rd episode of our Legendary Talks, and hold on to the next one, because it's coming. Cheers! Well.